So, what is the biogeochemical cycle? The biogeochemical cycle is composed of an element or compound that flows through different living and non living things inside the biosphere. The biogeochemical cycles are beneficial to living organisms as the cycles carry nitrogen, carbon, sulfur, and phosphorus cycles. The nitrogen and sulfur cycles are the main focus on this. The nitrogen cycle makes it so that nitrogen gets to move in different organisms and non living ones. Same with the sulfur cycle. This makes it so that sulfur gets to circulate through plants. Here's an explanation of what an ecological reservoir is. An ecological reservoir is generally a living host that houses a microorganism which survives often and does not cause illness to its host.
Biogeochemical cycle and ecological reservoir or environment. First is the nitrogen cycle and its ecological reservoir. The nitrogen cycle allows organisms to consume and use nitrogen in the environment before returning it to Earth's reservoir. It consists of a series of redox reactions that transform nitrogen into various chemical forms so that it is biologically available. Nitrogen cycles through the biosphere and the atmosphere through what is known as the nitrogen cycle. The major reservoir of nitrogen is the atmosphere, which is primarily made up of nitrogen, including the atmosphere, soil, and bodies of water. It serves as a natural storehouse of nitrogen. This reservoir helps to maintain the balance of nitrogen in the environment, preventing excessive accumulation or loss of this nutrient. Next is the sulfur cycle and its ecological reservoir. Sulfur is important for the functioning of proteins and enzymes in plants and in animals that depend upon plants for sulfur. Plants absorb sulfur when it is dissolved in water. Animals consume these plants so that they take up enough sulfur to maintain their health. The sulfur cycle con- contributes to the maintenance of ecosystem health and functioning. Sulfur plays a critical role in the formation of proteins, enzymes, and other important biomolecules. Additionally, sulfur compounds are important for the survival of many microorganisms, including those that help to break down dead organic matter. The ecological reservoir of sulfur, which includes the atmosphere, soil, and bodies of water, serves as a natural storehouse of sulfur, preventing excessive accumulation or loss of these nutrients.
Flora and fauna are critical components of ecosystems that play key roles in biogeochemical cycles. Primary producers, like plants, are essential in nutrient cycling as they absorb carbon dioxide and convert it to organic compounds through photosynthesis. Additionally, plants uptake important nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur, which are released back into the soil upon decomposition. Animals, such as herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores, also contribute to nutrient cycling through the consumption of plant and animal matter, releasing nutrients back into the ecosystem through their waste and decomposition. The definition of anthropogenic effects is that there are results of human activity on the natural world, including its ecosystems and environments. These impacts may be either directed or indirected and may involve changes to the atmosphere, land, water, and biodiversity. Anthropogenic effects include pollution, deforestation, habitat destruction, climate change, and overuse of natural resources, including fisheries and water resources. These effects, which can have severe repercussions for the health and well being of both people and the environment, are a source of growing concern and demand coordinated action to reduce and control them.
So, Le Chatelier's principle and its relation to anthropogenic perspective. The principle is an essential chemistry component. It outlines how an equilibrium system reacts to changes in its surroundings. According to the principle, a system in equilibrium will adjust its equilibrium position to counterbalance any temperature, pressure, concentration, or volume changes. Le Chatelier's principle can be used in various circumstances where human actions affect the environment from an anthropogenic standpoint. For example, fossil fuels contribute to climate change by releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The principle states that as more carbon dioxide is injected into the atmosphere, the equilibrium will adjust to absorb more of the gas through the procedures like photosynthesis and ocean absorption. Next is the effect of human activities on nitrogen cycle and sulfur cycle. Human activity can significantly impact the nitrogen and sulfur cycle as denitrification can affect the nitrogen cycle when practices like fertilizer use and wastewater discharge result in increased nitrogen runoff and leaching into water bodies, raising the nitrate concentrations in the water. Bacteria use oxygen during the nitrification process. Global warming can affect the sulfur cycle through human activities that change the planet's climate by releasing enormous quantities of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, including carbon dioxide and methane. The sulfur cycle and its effects on ecosystem can shift due to climatic changes in sulfur deposition and transformation rates.
I will be discussing invasive species and biogeochemical cycles. So firstly, what are invasive species? Invasive species refer to non-native plants or animals intentionally or accidentally introduced into an ecosystem, harming the environment, economy, and human health. These species can spread rapidly, and they dominate ecosystems, compete with native populations for resources, alter processes, cause catastrophic economic devastation, and can also spread disease. And lastly, it can have adverse effects on human health as well. Preventing and spreading invasive species is essential to maintaining ecological balance, protecting native fauna, and preserving biodiversity. Next, what are the impact of invasive species on nitrogen cycle and sulfur cycle? These invasive species can negatively impact an environment's nitrogen and sulfur cycles by changing soil chemistry, and as well as lowering the provision of those essential nutrients to native plant species. And lastly, it disrupts nutrients uptake. So these influences can lead to reduced plant growth, reduced plant diversity, and modifications within the composition of soil microorganisms. So in the long run, affecting the health and well-being of the surroundings.
Examples of invasive species affecting flora and fauna: the Burmese python in Florida's Everglades, kudzu in the southeastern United States, zebra mussels in North American freshwater ecosystems, Asian carp, Japanese knotweed, and the emerald ash borer are examples of invasive species harming flora and fauna. These invasive species compete for resources with native species, resulting in significant ecological and economic consequences. Native animal populations are declining due to the Burmese python, and kudzu is quickly displacing native vegetation, threatening local ecosystems and agricultural productivity. Zebra mussels can colonize hard surface and outcompete local species, while Asian carp, Japanese knotweed, and the emerald ash borer are all substantially influence native ecosystems and species.
Flora pertains to plants in a certain area, commonly natural plants, bacteria, and fungi. This is an important part in the biogeochemical cycles. Flora and fauna should be conserved because it is needed for humans to survive. An effective way to conserve is to protect the environment where plants and animals live. For future research regarding this topic, it would be interesting to add technology to the biogeochemical cycle. What can be the effects of technology that takes place in the environment. That would be all for the conclusion part of our info video. Thank you.